Friends of NRA is your chance to support our Second Amendment rights and preserve America's hunting traditions. Join Friends of NRA at one of our 600 exciting events nationwide. From games to auctions and exclusive firearms, Friends of NRA events are your chance to support a cause you care about while having a great time with patriots in your community. Whether you're a seasoned shooter, an avid hunter or outdoorsman, or passionate about freedom, there's a place for you within Friends of NRA. Visit friendsofnra.org to find an event near you. Stand up for freedom with the Friends of NRA.
It's winter, and you can now get almost anything you need for the coldest months of the year delivered with Uber Eats. What do we mean by almost? Well, you can't get a ski slope delivered, but you can get dish soap delivered. Sunshine, that's a no. But a bottle of wine, that's a yes. A snow angel, sorry, no. But angel hair pasta, Uber Eats can definitely get you that. Get almost anything delivered with Uber Eats. Order now. Alcohol and select markets. Product availability may vary by region. See app for details.
Alright, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast. Kevin and Chuck. Well, today we're going to talk about fun things. We're going to talk about medical cures. What do you do when the doctors and the medicine runs out? If there was an apocalyptic event, shit hits the fan. Believe it or not, in the United States, 70% of all drugs come from outside the United States. Mm-hmm. So with our government trying to irritate every other government, maybe that could end badly. I don't know. I mean,
I don't know how far that's going to go ultimately, because that drug Ozempic, the one that fat people take and makes them skinny without having to exercise, that comes from outside the United States.
Oh,
that's going to make rich people upset,
Right? Now, here's the thing. So first off, I have to point out, not a doctor. Kevin's probably not a doctor.
I'm not a doctor either.
Nope. Okay. So we're just telling you interesting ideas that you might want to look into and see if there's anything to it and things you can, figure out. One thing I've learned is that the American Medical Association concerns me a little bit too. You may want to watch some videos on that on the interwebs. Mm-hmm. It turns out there may be more of a get doctors paid and protect the people kind of company than they are to make you healthy.
Right. Well, I mean, honestly,
at least that's how they started out
in a long time.
That's how they started out.
Right.
I don't know. I do know that they don't really approve natural things. So whenever you see garlic isn't known to lower blood pressure because that's not proven by the American medical, because they don't prove natural things.
Right.
So it's never going to be proven. I'm just saying that's something you might want to look into. They did a census in 2023. They do censuses like every other year or whatever the hell. I don't know. But anyway, I didn't recall this question, but I don't think I filled out a census. So maybe that's why I didn't recall the question. But they asked people, have you had any instances of your prescriptions not being available at the pharmacy in 2023? And 18% of people who answered the census said they couldn't get their prescription in the last month.
That's a lot, man.
That's a lot.
Prescriptions are usually you get them because you need them. You know what I mean?
They think you need that to live.
Recommendation from your neighbor. It's a doctor thing,
So maybe my point would be just that maybe you want to think of like alternatives and backup plans. Right. Mm-hmm. As preppers, that's one of the big thing is how do I find a backup? Now, maybe that means obviously everything we recommend, you want to say, hey, doctor, I saw these idiots on the internet. They said this. What would you do? You're a professional, right? That would be good. And this is your doctor because you chose him. So therefore, he must be the guy that you think has good information. Just saying. So you would go to him and say, hey, I'm worried that my insulin might not, whatever. Is there any way that I could be on this one that lasts longer and I could keep in the fridge longer, or is there one that, whatever, different things. Could I keep a 90-day supply instead of a 30-day supply? Sometimes that makes it cheaper with your copays. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm.
So different things like that, right? You might want to look into that.
Right. Stocking up on medicine is always the way to go, in all cases that it's possible. But like you said, there's some things that just don't last forever.
They don't store and they don't keep. And that's one of the big fears I think a lot of people have. They always say the big study that came out that everybody got worked up about was when the EMP Commission came out and put out their report. They said 90% of Americans would die in the first year if we didn't have electricity.
Yeah.
Well, that's a staggering statistic. And
that's a lot. Yeah.
Now, one, they thought we're all jackasses and we'd all kill each other. So, I mean, there's that, right? Hence, right. I mean, there's that. But then part two of that is, hospitals, right? If they didn't have electricity, can they keep going? The on-demand shipping of food, the on-demand shipping of medical supplies.
Yeah.
And turns out, here's one of the bigger problems. People are like, oh, well, I'll go to the pharmacy and get all the drugs there that I need and get them. Or, people say, I'll go to the vet clinic because people won't think of that. And it's true. They might think of that second and not first. But the problem is people are going to go looking for illegal drugs and the kind that numb the pain.
Right.
And the kind of people that might go do that are maybe people who are in a desperate situation who you might not want to deal with. Now, obviously, if you don't get your heart pills, and you might be in a desperate situation.
Right.
But I don't know if you're as used to living the thug life as the guy who's looking for the oxygen. I'm just saying.
Exactly. Well, let's talk about insulin real quick here. So power's out. You have insulin. What are you going to do with it? Well, you can store it at room temperature for up to 30 days. All the ways you're going to store it that's not in the refrigerator is going to shorten the amount of time that it lasts, and it's going to be less effective in doing what it's supposed to do, and
it basically doesn't do anything is my understanding. But again, that's a question for your doctor, but it basically gets weaker and weaker the longer it's not cold.
Mm-hmm. You need to know how to monitor your blood sugar too. I mean, that's a big thing. And I think most people that are diabetic do know how to do that, but it's definitely something you want to be able to keep track of.
Now, would you maybe go to a company that made EMP bags that could keep your blood sugar testing equipment safe after the apocalypse?
Might be a good idea.
All right. Something to take note of.
Now, and you can't freeze insulin. So if it's frozen, it's a no-go. Basically trash, even if it you thaw it out. But you can keep it, store it in a cool, dry place, like they tell everybody, and you can keep it for up to 30 days without being refrigerated. So that's a big deal if you have insulin when the lights go out. But that's why we're talking about keeping a supply of it, as much as possible. Another one that I saw people have issues with is oxygen tanks. Once the oxygen runs out, that's it. A lot of people rely on oxygen. There are oxygen concentrators that you can get, pieces of equipment that you can have in your house that basically it just pulls the nitrogen out of the air and focuses the oxygen there. And you can get your tanks refilled at home. But, that counts on electricity, being able to keep that powered up. So there's a lot of things that people have a lot of chronic health issues and, medications that they have to take regularly. That's really something that you need to keep on top of. If it's your own, your own life, your family, your kids, your parents, You want to be conscientious of this stuff before it's an emergency.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, that I hate to say it, that's one of the big ones that people get excited about was diabetes that you touched on first. Oxygen, obviously huge. There is a decent percentage of the population that are dependent on that. And that's the thing. Like, we used to think, oh, there's no electricity, but there are ways around it. And if you get the proper equipment, beforehand and kind of protect it from an EMP, that kind of stuff, there are ways that some of these could be avoided. Like Kevin was saying with, creating your own oxygen. None of this stuff's cheap. I don't know, but
those
what's it worth to you to stay alive, I guess?
The extractors, I saw anywhere between $300 and $3,000. And I'm sure that the one you need is probably the $3,000 one, That's the one that actually works.
So I was looking, and that's one of the things, like maybe it doesn't have to be a complete societal collapse, but the fact that these things come from far away, if they're not coming in, we have problems. And there's actually a lot of people out there who are worried about like diabetes, about insulin, and that there could be a shortage and that we're not making it locally. They actually were talking about how some pharmacies have an ability to make insulin and different things. Something you could Google and look into, whatever. That's, something else. I don't know. I'm not that guy. But I did the research and I found there's something called the Open Insulin Project or Open Insulin Foundation. And you can check them out at openinsulin.org. And they're actually trying to set it up so that communities can make their own insulin in their community. And they have 6 or 7 locations about the country that they have kind of going with it. Of course, you'd be shocked to hear that one of their biggest hurdles is getting government approval and to be able to keep doing things.
Right.
I know that you can't believe that, but that's actually true. The other thing with that is that they're biohackers. If you've looked into this whole biohacking thing, it's kind of crazy. People are just creating synthetic stuff and injecting whatever and coming up with all kinds of craziness. I'm sure there's a lot of people who meet an untimely death, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
because of biohacking. But
there's definitely a lot of stuff going on that's questionable.
Transhumanism
is one of those, one of those things, and it starts with basic stuff, prosthetic legs and, glasses and, things like that. But, it moves into the weird stuff real fast. And you see that guy that's been taking his son's blood. I can't think of his name.
Soros? Oh.
No, it's I can't think of his name right now, but he's basically drawing his own old person blood out and getting rid of it and injecting his son's young blood. And he says it's keeping him younger. I mean, it sounds like a vampire to me, but I mean, whatever, do your thing.
Yep. Yeah, it turns out there's some youthful properties that, there's more than one guy out there doing that, they keep their 18-year-old houseboy around to, keep them fresh on the blood,
Right.
I don't even know that it's always their son. It's whatever. Oh, I'll get this young, strapping, young, healthy boy and keep him around.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things way back in the day that I always hear in the prepper books, they actually used to make insulin, or I don't want to say make, it's acquire insulin from pig pancreases. Mm-hmm. And that's all, you always see it in the prepper books. And I was like, is that even possible? It's true, but is it, it's kind of one of those quackery kind of things, if you want to be honest. I think they did it, but it didn't really work that well. So that's a thing. So I looked into it and I was like, let's see what we can do. So pig insulin, it's called porcine, porcin. They ground up the pig pancreases.
Okay.
They grind it up. They soak it in alcohol to extract crude insulin. Now, how soaking it in alcohol, do you know that it separates just insulin? I don't know. So again, this is what I could gather from the interwebs out there, right? So they soak it in alcohol. They extract the crude insulin. And this is from ChatGPT. They did the research and broke it down for me. So, again, they have a hard time with spelling or creating pictures with people with 2 arms and 2 legs. So if I'm going to trust them for my medical advice, I'm not so sure. But anyway.
Well, my recommendation ultimately would be, don't try and make your own insulin. But I mean,
that would 100% be what I would gather from what I read. All right. Yeah. So then they said it undergoes precipitation and centrifuge.
Okay.
So I think that's like when you spin it, right? Yep. And they separate things, go to the outside or whatever. Do you take the chunky stuff? Do you take the others? I don't know. They didn't tell me that. But this is something that, and then they basically remove, after the centrifuge, you remove the unwanted proteins and fats. All right. Then they said it turns out a ton of people reject the insulin and their body doesn't do it after they do all that. So there's another way that you can like edit the genes or something in the insulin and then
not something you're doing in your kitchen.
Yeah. I was like, that's not really something that you're doing, but I don't know. So I think one of the things, right, you go back to, bottom line, you're not making your own insulin, at least out of pig pancreases. I think I would look into that Open Insulin Foundation. If I looked at the website and went through it, there's not like, hey, just go do this. It's not like that. It's like, hey, we're working on this and we're trying to make it happen. And, it's something I would look into if I had diabetes and was limited, because the bottom line is making this stuff available at a more local level is going to make the world better for everybody, right? 100%. Having options that are local is the key. And obviously there aren't maybe a million options out there now, but this is something to look into. That's the same thing with talking to the doctor beforehand is, hey, these things might happen in the future. What could I do? Right. One of the big things we all used to get, they talk about having your own supply of antibiotics, right?
Right.
And that was a big thing. That's actually been stopped. Because you used to be able to go I'll go get fish antibiotics. You used to be able to get it out of the Bud K catalog for a little bit there. They sell the crappy $10 knives.
Right.
They would have it that you could buy it, but you could go to Tractor Supply and you could buy antibiotics all the time. It would be called fish mocks and different things and whatever. I may or may not have purchased some of this and whatever, but you used to be able to get it in the exact proper doses. And if you look at the pills, they would be made in the same lab or, same places. It was Thomas Labs, I think, that made it for your pharmacy. So, it was
you could just get them and have that on hand. Not really the case anymore, though.
And I believe I've read in multiple places, plus I don't see it anymore available, that, it's no longer an option for you. So if you didn't get some beforehand, you're kind of stuck. So that said, I know there's a company that Jace Case, they do it where basically they'll have you consult with their doctor. It may even be online or whatever, but basically you're like, hey, this is me. This is what I like to do. And I'm a prepper and I'd like to keep some of this on hand. And they actually have, what is it? Ivermectin is the big one that, people are like, oh, I can treat my own COVID or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's supposedly, that's antiviral. Honestly,
it was supposed to be good for a lot of things legitimately. And, I don't know about whether it works for COVID. I don't know anybody who had COVID that bad and whatever. I understand lots of people died and I just said, I do not know anybody who had.
Right.
And you used to have some stories, but go on.
It is great for, anti-parasitic, right? It's supposed to help you get rid of the parasites. And honestly, that might be an issue at some point if you're, not able to cook your food properly, if you're not able to refrigerate your food properly, that might be an issue, So having that on hand would not be a bad idea, no matter, where you're coming from.
Yeah. Now, that's the thing. So, we actually have a decent sized YouTube audience now, which I'd have to point out. If you guys like and subscribe, it might get bigger and you could be part of the audience. That's whatever. But I know I reached out to that Jace case, but just last night I thought about it. I was like, oh, yeah, I should get an affiliate with them. And they were like, yeah, we'll give you a discount code. And I will try and set it up and put it in the links below it if it works out. But basically they were like, oh, show us your TikTok account and your Facebook. And I'm like, oh, you mean the 10 people that follow me there? Yeah. That's not going to, because we have a podcast, right? And that's where our audience is. And our, YouTube channel is another big part of our audience. But
it's not TikTok or
whatever. I mean, Kevin and I, we don't really have the faces for TikTok. Now, Kevin may be more so than me, but, I don't know. He's a little younger and prettier still. I don't know. But I don't know if that's really true, but we're going to go.
Oh, come on.
I can't let you have it, Kevin. So anyway, but Jay's case, but that was one of the things that I found is you used to be able, dude, you could buy the antibiotics for $20. You could buy a big, 90-day supply or whatever. And all these things. And now you go to Jay's case and it's $299. We can get you a 30-day supply of one of them. And you're like,
right.
Ooh. So bottom line, once the government steps in to help, it always gets cheaper and easier for you. That's my experience.
That's always how it works out.
That's always how it works. Now, one of the things that's actually pretty neat, though, is you would be like, well, Chuck, I would have no idea how to prescribe or take antibiotics, which is, to be honest, why you kind of need a prescription. Because I would just randomly take things and not know, oh, I'll take 2 of these and it'll all get better, right?
Right.
I don't know. And the thing is, it varies depending on the symptoms and the, stuff that you have going on.
Right.
So again, back to we're not doctors, we're not lawyers, we don't know. But there is a doctor called Joseph Alton, medical doctor, who sells a book that you can buy on Amazon called The Survival Medicine Handbook. All right. I believe that it might be backwards, but you guys probably figure it out. You're pretty smart. Survival Medicine Handbook. He actually talks about the end of the world and things you might do. He actually outlines in that book 100%. I've read it. I've actually possibly even applied some of his techniques and had them pay off. All right. He says, if you have this is the antibiotic regimen. If you have amoxicillin, you would use that for these 5 conditions. If you have the penicillin one, whatever, the different things, he's like, you would use this, for these diseases. This would be the course. It would be this dose. It would be this many days. It would be this. And he lays it all out. So something like that would be very smart to have on hand. Now, if I remember right, this book was $40. It wasn't cheap. And that is not the only thing he covers. He talks about things that you can do when you're not a doctor, right? He's like, he covers all a doctor's going to say, just take this drug. But what does that mean to you? It doesn't mean anything to me or Kevin when a doctor says, oh, you need, I don't even know any drugs, but a atorvastatin, right? That's one I've heard of. So maybe you need that. If I can't go to the drugstore and get a atorvastatin, I have no idea where to go from there, right?
Right.
Or what to do. So this guy says, hey, you take that. This is what you would do if you couldn't get it from the store. you would take this, or shit, maybe it's change your diet and don't eat that anymore, you know?
Right.
If you don't eat crap, maybe it won't be as bad for you. That's what they keep telling me.
Diet and exercise really is probably the only medical advice we should be giving anybody. But
eat less, move around more, you know, one of those. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not even like eat less, it's eat less crap, right?
Right.
If it comes in a sealed plastic bag that doesn't have to be refrigerated, there's probably you should eat less of that. So I don't know. That's my thing. But anyway, this book really is awesome and does cover tons of great stuff in there. And the thing is that's cool in there is he talks about buy these things beforehand, because these are the drugs that come up all the time in my treatments.
Right.
And if you had these things on hand, and obviously they're things that you can buy, right? But he also tells you how you might apply those antibiotics, that kind of thing, and use that. So something to think about. Another book, if you're really a hardcore, and this would be more like you have an EMT, you know an EMT, you know a doctor. There is a book called Emergency War Surgery that came out. It's like for NATO. But they talk about, I'm telling you, that book will tell your nurse friend or your doctor friend how to think outside the box and say, and this is what the government put together and said, hey, this is how you do it when you can't get what you normally get in a hospital. And they're like, you know, pull out the radiator hose and, you know, just use that instead. It's not quite like that, but they're hardcore. And again, if you read through it, you might realize the supplies that you could get beforehand. One of the things I would actually consider is, even if I wasn't an EMT or a nurse or a doctor, which I am not, if I wasn't, but some of my neighbors were, even if they weren't that into prepping or anything, you might want to read some of these books and get some of these supplies, keep them on hand. Or maybe you're part of a mutual assistance group or something like that. Have your medic read these books and keep the supplies on hand. Even if they say, hey, look, you know, our medical budget is kind of a bit much for me. Could we all chip in and get these couple of things? Maybe that's what you do, right? In theory, in my mind, if we're like the mutual assistance group, I might be the armorer guy, and it's my problem to figure out all my expenses to keep guns and things working and whatever. Not that I would buy everybody's gun, but I would handle the maintaining supplies on my end, and then my buddy might be the medic, right? And he would handle the medic supplies, you know, and we all focus and whatever. You decide how your world works, right? But I'm just saying that's something you might want to look into, is everybody covering their end. But I will say those two books, Emergency War Surgery, the NATO Handbook, and the Survival Medicine Handbook, both are absolutely amazing. Now, there is a bunch of like books on like apothecary and things like that. There's a bunch of herbal remedy books. There's a bunch with affiliate programs that I could have signed up for and be like, yeah, if you go to my TikTok shop and whatever, you know, I don't know. I don't know about any of those. I know that my wife has a lot of books on herbal remedies, but these are things that you want to start growing some of these plants right now.
Right. It's not going to be,
think about it.
Great. It's not going to be great if you have to go out and grow it after you're already sick.
Or you can't recognize it, or you don't know. It was funny. I was actually looking up some of the books to see if there was something to talk about. And when I typed in apothecary stuff, it turned out they had like cases you could get on Amazon of the home apothecary first aid kit or whatever. And just like had all the different stuff in there. I don't know. I have no idea what's good. I'm not endorsing anything like that. I'm just saying there were things out there. And these are things, right? If you're worried about this is stuff you should start researching and start jumping into, right? I'm giving you the jumping off point. And that's what we've always done with this podcast is, I can't teach you every single aspect of something. I can't make you a doctor in a 40-minute episode especially when I'm not a doctor myself. Mm-hmm. I can't teach you everything there is to know. But what I can do is tell you, hey, these are something you need to be thinking about. This is something that's going to be an issue. And, these become real concerns. And they're real hard to deal with after. But having a couple of really good books or doing a little research can help you a lot. I will tell you that survival medicine book, you can just kind of look up symptoms and like, hey, this is happening. And this is how you treat those symptoms. And it might be this. And this is what's, and goes on. Again, because it's so hard because of the way being a doctor is like being a lawyer where they're super protective in their field, right? They're like, oh, you can't give legal advice. You can't tell someone something medical. So doctors are afraid to share any information. And so that was one of the awesome things about that book was a guy who like is willing to put his neck on the line for you. Because to be honest, it's kind of one of those, if you give people a little bit of information, they might actually do something stupid. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're so afraid of. Everybody's so afraid of getting sued, which hence the disclaimer, we're not lawyers or doctors.
Right. So, somebody had just mentioned that I haven't gotten anyone killed yet. So let's get into that.
Kevin,
you can
step up your game.
You can make penicillin at home. You can make it in your kitchen. It takes a couple of weeks. You have to be able to identify the proper mold. You have to be able to grow it, separate it, but you can do it. That mold that grows on bread? That's pretty much it.
The green one? I mean?
Yeah. Maybe you shouldn't make it in your kitchen and inject it unless it's an emergency, but it is possible to do. And it's not all that complicated.
Do you eat it? What do you do with it when you grow it in?
You would inject it.
Inject it. That's pretty gross. I always used to hear it when I was like in the 70s when I was a kid. So that's a long time ago, Kevin. Way back before the hills got dusty. They used to talk about, oh, that's penicillin when you'd see the moldy bread in the fridge. Yeah. It's weird. You don't see moldy bread anymore.
No, it's too many preservatives. You got to get the natural bread. You got to get it from the bakery, not from Walmart.
Right. That makes more sense. I don't know. That's concerning. So that's the thing. Like I was like, well, what did everybody die of in the 1900s or, earlier? Right. And I was like, how does it all go wrong for people? What kills people? Now, mind you, you didn't grow up if you had a lot of the conditions that now people can somehow live through. Right. You didn't make it. Let alone when we were kids
and if somebody caught cancer, that was it.
They get the cancer.
You're going to die now. Yeah.
I think that's still a thing. No, it's not.
They're curing a lot of it now. I mean,
that is pretty awesome. I don't know. So I looked it up. One of the big thing was TB, right? Doc Holliday, right? That's what we remember. The consumption. Now, so that was airborne and something that you caught, but it was basically malnutrition that, your body would get weak and then you get that. I mean, no. So TB is not malnutrition, but it was malnutrition that allowed your body to catch it. Right. That's what I meant. I didn't mean that it's malnutrition, right? That would be scurvy that, is more like the malnutrition thing. But anyway, but we have everything I'm going to go through here, we actually get a vaccine for. Now, sure, that vaccine is probably filled with mercury and poison and whatever. I don't know. Talk to the new guy, RFK there.
It's all poison. There's lead in there or something. I don't know.
I don't know. I have no idea, honestly, what's in there.
But these are all diseases that you don't want to get. So
no.
Maybe you want to get the vaccines. You want to.
That's true. It took out Doc Holliday. He didn't look good with it. So, but he did have that hot chick in that movie that one time. So
Big Nose Kate.
Yep. So, all right. Cholera, that's a bacteria. Again, you can get a vaccine for that. Smallpox, get a vaccine for that. That was actually a big one. That took out a lot of people. Typhoid and typhus. Now, you get that from contaminated food, the whole diarrhea thing, and somehow when fecal matter is getting in your mouth, or you always see the people with explosive diarrhea upstream, and then you're drinking the water downstream.
Drinking the water downstream. I mean, it's kind of how it spreads. You get that explosive diarrhea, and it gets everywhere. And then that's it, man. Then you eat something, after you cleaned up somebody else's mess and didn't wash your hands properly, and now you've got explosive diarrhea, and it just, cascades.
Exactly. Pneumonia was a big, thing to take people out. And again, I gotta say, a lot of that does come down to a weakened immune system too, that you're more susceptible to these things. And taking vitamin D3 and these things. I mean, going outside, you get vitamin D, right? But I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually having, a multivitamin to take you kind of through the apocalypse might be a good idea. I'm just saying.
Big thing.
What were you going to say, Kevin?
Well, I mean, scurvy was one of those things that they didn't understand why people got it. They didn't really get what caused scurvy. But it's still something you can get from malnutrition.
Yes.
And having vitamin C, you can be, your gums like receding and your teeth falling out and, blood pouring out of your mouth and
not a good thing.
Take vitamin C and that stuff almost immediately goes away.
On a ship, they used to require that I'm sure they still do. They had to put out fresh fruit every day. And so we'd pull into these ports where fresh fruit is maybe less available. So they'd put out this rotten, nasty stuff with flies all over it. And they'd be like, sailors on my ship aren't getting scurvy. Get hot. Now, mind you, they didn't make you eat it, but you had the option to live, Kevin.
Yeah.
You had the option to not have all your teeth fall out. Just because you chose to not eat the maggot infested fruit, that's up to you.
That's on you.
All right.
Yeah. No, I remember that fruit.
Yeah. You saw that fruit too, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of it was around the Mediterranean for me, but I don't know. Because it turned out people didn't like America as much as you guys might think. I know you're like, oh, we're rolling in, we're freedom, we're here to help, we're bringing food and babies and whatever, or making babies. I don't know what we were doing, but all these things were happening, and they would they'd be like, you know what, we don't like you guys. We're going to give you all the rotten fruit and don't care. And we'd pay full price because we got to have fruit. And but another thing that was taking out people is malaria. Turns out there's a vaccine for malaria. However, it's only safe for people in Africa. They decided it's not really safe for people in America. Now, what's weird is Americans decided it was safe for people in Africa. It's not like Africa decided that.
Right.
We were like, it's good for you guys. I don't think we're going to give it to our kids over here.
I mean, malaria is not a great disease to have, and the vaccine for it is not it's not great for you. It's better than dying of malaria, but it's not.
To be honest, I mean, that's the answer. That's what it comes down to, right? Your likelihood of getting malaria here in our current conditions in the United States is very low. So it's probably not worth getting a really sketchy vaccine. But if you were in Africa, your likelihood goes up quite a bit. So then maybe it is worth it. I don't know. I don't know how all that works. Guess what? I don't know what's right for you.
Personally,
give you options.
If you're concerned about not being able to access a doctor in the future, I would go to the doctor now and get any vaccine that is available,
Talk to him. Say, hey, these are my concerns. What do you think? And see what he says.
I know when I was in the Navy, they gave me vaccines for all sorts of stuff, and I'm immune to anthrax, I guess, but
yes,
I'm not sure that vaccine was worth the the amount of time, the frequency of me interacting with anthrax.
You still fall down and twitch a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out we had to get a booster every 6 months on that too.
Oh, so it's not even good anymore.
It's not even good.
Damn.
Yeah, we were supposed to keep getting boosters on that, and once we left Iraq or whatever, they're like, "Nah, you don't, whatever." Saddam, don't even worry about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of things going on out there, but
let's talk about asthma real quick. If you have asthma or your kid has asthma, stock up on the quick relief inhalers. You should have extras of that. Even if it's not like a serious case of asthma, you should have, and they can sit in a drawer for a long time and be just fine. You should have a written plan, an asthma action plan on what to do if somebody starts having an asthma attack. You can get a portable nebulizer with extra batteries, stock up on I think I tell you every podcast, get batteries, have batteries for everything, have more batteries than you need, get batteries. And also keep copies of all your medical documents available. You might not be able to get into a hospital locally, but if you're, bugging out somewhere and you have your documents, you can go to another doctor and, get your prescriptions filled, or at least get a prescription to have filled.
Maybe a temporary, whatever. They probably won't give you the oxycodone that you think you need, but they might give you the antibiotics or, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So again, think about things. Think about, hey, if I'm super worried, again, it depends what you're worried about preparing for. So if you think an EMP, then maybe like Mission Darkness, and you get they have the EMP bags that you can put some of this medical equipment, your blood tester, that kind of stuff in there. That's something to do. But if you're worried about flooding, right? Do you have your stuff in a safe place with like Ziploc bags, up in a secure box that you're going to be able to get to and whatever? Maybe you're bugging out for a fire. Do you have it in your bag and you can take it and run away with it? These are the things you need to think about, what's really practical and realistic for your situation, and then apply, the preparation to your situation. Mm-hmm. And, your medical conditions, right? That's the thing. What's going to be important to you, and maybe dig down a little bit on alternatives for your conditions or your loved ones, right? Your family that you care about, that kind of stuff. So that's what I got. Kevin, any more insight that you need to, you don't want to kill anybody today?
No,
that would be
I think we already took care of that with the penicillin.
Penicillin is the trick.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of natural remedies. There's a lot of natural medicine that actually does work. There's also a lot of natural medicine that doesn't work. I would not try and cure my cancer with crystals, but there's stuff out there and research you can do and plants you can grow and harvest that can be used for certain medical conditions. I wouldn't trust it as much as something I get from a doctor, but in the situation that we're talking about, you might not be able to access a doctor. So that's all I got to say on that.
All right. That sounds right. So questions, concerns, any kind of remedies or things people should look into, maybe things that are a little outside the box, maybe a good book. I don't know. Put it in the comments and, let us know what you think. We love hearing, your feedback and, how you can get back to us. You guys have show ideas, thoughts, concerns. I know we put a bunch we talked about in the Prepping Badass group. That's where this one came from. And, hey, we're going to go through and figure out lots of good ideas, but you should join the Prepping Badass group and the community. And, hey, then that way you can be part of the discussion and help shape the future. Otherwise, you don't want to do that. Just email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. We have a website, survivalandbasicbadasspodcast.com, or just preppingbadass.com, I think gets you there. And you can sign up for the email list. And I never send emails, which some people, that's their favorite kind of email list.
Right.
Like you get an email once a year. But one day I'm just going to send tons of gun deals. Like every time I find good gun deals, I'm going to start sending out an email. Because you can't do it on Facebook. And how am I going to share with my friends? Like nothing makes me happier than seeing a good gun deal in my email. Right. Like it's funny because you get all that email and you're like, delete. Oh, possibly a good gun deal. Let me open that one.
Yeah.
Oh,
and the thing is, you can
deal, right?
You can present it to your wife instead of saying, "Oh, I just bought a new gun," or "I just spent $500 on ammo." You can say, "You're never gonna guess how much money I saved this," and that's how to do it.
Yeah, I can I'll frame it so that they're all like save $1,500 by buying this $700 gun. You'll be in. So I'm just saying, we're going to keep your options open. And now I really appreciate you guys sticking around. So you're awesome. I will see if I can set something up with Jay's case. If I can't, you shouldn't buy from them because that means that they're no good if they won't give me money. But that's how I interpret things.
Right.
Who knows? Anyway, with that, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.